All right, folks, welcome back. Another A&P video. So we're gonna look at the kidney dissection. That's what's looking at you right in the face. I've taken this kidney, I've cut it in half, and let me tell you something. It's harder than you would think, even with a handy-dandy scalpel. You can see how messy this thing looks. It was pristine, shine like new money, until I got a hold of it and sliced and diced my way through this kidney. All for you. So let's look at a few structures you have to know. And so let's take a peek. So we're going to start with the layers, I think, first. I think that helps. And you don't have to know too many of these. The outermost layer, following tradition we've mentioned before, is the cortex. Cortex, found there. It's the outermost layer, and that is kind of what we've seen so far. We talked about a lot of structures in this course. So cortex, outermost layer, seen here and here. Now, it's important to note this wraps around even to here too. So it's like this outermost kind of protective layering of it. Okay, now the next is the medulla, the middle part, right? And this is a little tricky, but you have to look for this discoloration that's present. So this area here represents the medulla. And so it's a little more obvious in real life, less so on the video I'm seeing, but it's this region. It's kind of the medulla. You can see it over here too. Medulla. And so you see these little dots. Those have their own names, so we'll talk about in a second. But those are structures found in the medulla. It's the middlemost layer. Got that. Okay. And then next, we have the pelvis. Now the pelvis is the innermost layer. It's found about here, this region. And so it's where urine will be like the last spot in the kidney before it's fully expelled from the body. So this region here is the pelvis. Pelvis. All right, that's our three main layers. Now we look at some structures. So the cortex, it exists. Within the cortex are these things called nephrons. So nephrons are the functional and structural unit of the kidney. Kidneys can only do their thing with nephrons. That's what makes them do their job. They're kind of like neurons are in the nervous system, right? The main drivers, that's what nephrons are. So when blood is filtered, it's filtered outside in this more cortex region, so out here. So this is where they start to receive the blood. Kind of in that, well, it's a little more on the outside, but yeah, we're good. Don't worry about that too much. But this is where the blood comes in, and it's first filtered. So when blood is filtered out, fluids taken in, ideally not blood cells unless you have a condition, this is the first stop it'll go. And so this may be, for most of us, this is the last place it'll go. It won't go, well, it'll do most of the filtering here in the cortex, and then it'll eventually pass through the other structures into this area via a structure called the collecting duct, which we'll talk about in lecture. So, but that's part of the main drainage process. So nephrons, most of them are found only in the cortex, and we have a few that will dip down into the medulla. But the point is, urine formation occurs from the outside all the way in, dumped into this region where this essentially would just be a pool of pee, and then it gets leaves the kidney via the ureter down to the bladder, where it'll leave the body via the urethra. But that's the formation. So it starts here and then goes all the way through. So this is early stage, urine formation. It's more late stage urine formation. All right. So cool. But with that in mind, let's look at one of the most important structures in the medulla, which is the renal pyramids. So the renal pyramids are fantastic. They have collecting ducts and nephrons in them as well. Long nephrons to maximize their amount of water absorption, reabsorption, and ion concentration, solute reabsorption that takes place. And so that's these structures. And so they're called pyramids because they're supposed to kind of like a pyramid. These are more rounded pyramids, so like a pyramid after thousands of years of erosion. I guess this is the more like what they're dealing with. The kidney is one of my favorite organs. I really like the urinary system in general. How it works is incredibly fascinating and also somewhat simple. Deceptively simple, I would say. And also they got pyramids in it. And I love pyramids. Like, I've always been a huge fan of pyramids. I even saw a basketball game played in a pyramid once, so it was pretty awesome. So this is pretty cool. That's a nice looking pyramid. That ain't bad. Yeah, pyramids. Okay, and so within the pyramids you have nephrons with longer things called loops of Henle, but essentially means they can do a lot better at reabsorbing things and making more concentrated urine. So that's why these are really important structures. And so the more of prominent, this kind of area you have, the more nephrons you have that go down here, the more concentrated your urine will be. Again, you'll learn about that in lecture. So those are pyramids. Let me show you another kidney, other half of the kidney. Pyramids. Pyramid. Boom. Okay. Now the columns. The columns are kind of hard to see. That's just the reality here. But they're the places in the medulla between the pyramids. So kind of this region here. So this area in between. This would be a renal column. Get it all the way out. Yeah, renal column. And then kind of over here, this region. So those are found with all of these spots. So not too shabby. Not too shabby. Renal columns. Both of those are structures in the medulla. The columns technically start in the cortex, but we're not going to get those nitty gritty. But then, so after urine's being formed, right, it goes through the cortex, then it leaves via collecting ducts, which will pass through the medulla, and then it has to actually, exit the medulla and go into this open cavity, this open space. And this leads us to the first of those structures, the minor calyx. And so this is kind of the beginning of the urine dumping ground, and it occurs right in these areas kind of underneath this spot. So just pour into there. And a few of these will dump into another structure, but this is the minor calyx right around there. Minor calyx. And the major calyx is this region down here. Calyx, major calyx. And it's where you have several of these collecting ducts dumping into one spot. And so they just dump in further together and they'll pull up into the pelvis and then they'll expel the fluid outside the body. Calyx is a pretty cool word. I don't know what it means, but it's cool. I know what it means on the kidney though, and that's what we just talked about. It kind of looks like a weird demented butterfly now that I'm looking at it at this angle through the camera. It gives me a whole new perspective. We're just missing a head. Let's see if we can find something that'll serve as a makeshift head. Oh, I know. These scissors will work. And there's our cute little butterfly of a kidney. And I think that's kind of cool. There's the little antenna eye things. That's two different structures. And then that's part of the body. Little tail thing. And then the wings, which is all I really care about with the butterfly anyway. Kidney butterfly. The things you do. All right, that's it for the kidney dissection. Make sure you can recognize